They told me these are the milestones you have to hit. This is, the things that you have to look out for. If you get some issues, like you have to try to resolve them. You have to have daily status updates or weekly status updates, like whatever the customer prefers.
Yeah.
So I got on the call and I just learned along the way.
That's so cool.
What you have to do is set your standard and set your tone because you know how when you're going to get, once you get into the work environment, you're going to get those people will try anything just to see if you'll take the bait of being the gossiper or the person who goes back and tell everything. I just came in and I was like, "Oh, that's not my business." You know, I'm not going to, say anything about this person or that person, but I'm going to talk to everyone and have a conversation. Sometimes, Albert probably can tell you this. I felt like I was the social butterfly at AT&T because everybody would come to my queue, we would hang out, and now I was like, "Okay, y'all, we're gonna get across."
Welcome to another episode of the Work and Play podcast. I'm your host, Ariel Young, and I have the fabulous Miss Alexis Hines here to join me. Hello, how are you? Thank you for joining me.
Yes, thank you.
But you know why I'm excited about this conversation?
Why?
I think because we both see each other in a certain light, and it makes sense. But then again, we've had so many intimate moments, but we see each other on Instagram,
Yeah.
and we're like, oh, okay, she looks so wholesome. She was real nice. And there's a whole other life behind I like social media. So I'm excited to get into that piece.
Yes.
But without further ado, would you like to introduce yourself? What do you do?
Yes. So I am a project manager. I just accepted a new position.
Congratulations.
I know, with CoStar Group. So I'll be starting there Monday. But I've been a project manager for almost 8 years. Started off with AT&T. And then I went over to Agilicis. And yeah, had fun.
And the rest is history.
Yeah, and now I'm new journey, new start. So yeah.
Yes. Well, I know you through Albert, and we actually had a chance to get into like project management from his experience. But as it pertains to like you getting into project management and even what you do now, a lot of that stuff is unbeknownst to me. So, what does your lens of project management look like?
Yeah, so just to go back, I was a marketing major and a hospitality major. So nothing with project management whatever. So I went back home after college, graduating, couldn't find a job. So someone just bumped into me and was like, AT&T is hiring. So I was like, oh, but I have a degree. So the store, I don't know. And then they were like, no, it's corporate. Like, go. Like, so I literally applied for the job. As soon as I clicked submit, they called me within, like, 10, 15 minutes. Yeah, that was insane.
Yeah, you don't hear those stories.
Yeah, because I didn't do an internship. I didn't I just went to Georgia State
Yeah.
and just did that, and they called me. I don't know if it was because Georgia State has a partnership with them, but that was something that I was just blown away by.
Yeah.
So and it coulda been God, but
Absolutely.
yeah, so I did that, and that's how I actually got into project management. I went in there blind, and my whole journey within AT&T was I was like, "Okay, y'all tell me what to do,
And I'll do it.
and I'll do it, and I'm just gonna work so hard to try to, make sure I can get the job done, but kinda make sure that I learn along the way." And that's what I did. They told me, "These are the milestones you have to hit. This is, the things that you have to look out for. If you get some issues, like you have to try to resolve them. You have to have daily status updates or weekly status updates, like whatever the customer prefers." So I got on the call and I just learned along the way.
That's so cool. Okay, yeah. So you had your marketing degree, marketing and hospitality. And I'm assuming you graduated, but then you didn't necessarily know what you were gonna do. Your friend said, "Hey, they're hiring at AT&T." You applied, and 10 minutes later you get a call. But how did you handle that? Like, did they ask you in for an interview? And what were they hiring for?
So at this point it was an associate project manager. And when they called, they said, "Hey, we saw you submitted your application. We want to interview you, get to know you." And what happened is they set up a web interview. So, I got my little web camera ready because it was a webcam back where you had to stick it on top of the yeah. So I got that ready. And then after I did that, I put on my little suit and I clicked join the room and she had on a t-shirt and jeans. So I said, okay. So she was like, oh wow, like thank you for, dressing up and because I guess maybe they were not expecting that because that's what they normally, they wanted a relaxed culture. So anyway, I did the web interview with them. And I think that was the only interview that I did, and she was a project manager actually, that I interviewed with. And she actually passed me for it. And it's so crazy because I had prayed about it. I had went to church and I wanted to come back to Atlanta. And I was like, wrote down everything, like where I wanted to work. I was like, I want to work in the city. I want an apartment in the city. Like I just wrote all these things and I wanted to make, a certain amount of money. So lo and behold, I'm driving on this remote area
Yeah.
in the country, no service, and I get a phone call from AT&T. And they were like, "Hey, we wanna offer you the position." I was like, "Oh, wait, huh? Okay." And it was exactly what I said because I came back, I got it was in the city, I got an apartment in the city, everything that I wrote on that at church that day, I wrote, and then we prayed over it, and then the other pastor took it outside and he burned it. And everything that I had there, it was fulfilled, and I was just blown away because I was just kinda like, "Oh, wow, okay. I'm scared of this, but okay." So that's basically what happened, and that's how I got there. It was just a web interview and then a job offer. So,
And you took the leap.
yeah, I
So
took the lead. I didn't know anything. Yeah.
now I can hear it in your story. One, you're a praying woman.
Oh, yeah.
And then you trusted, your faith like from this step, which is like literally having a marketing background and trusting that they're going to bring you into the city. But it sounds like you have this solid upbringing in the church. So
Yeah.
how did you grow up?
Oh, I grew up only child. My parents married, they married in '89, um, and
Yeah.
they had me. They are from my mom, she was born in Miami, Florida, but they moved to Georgia, and my dad was originally from Georgia. So small country town with one red light, Wrightsville, Georgia. A lot
Right.
yes, a lot of people don't know where it is. If you went to UGA, you passed through it
Okay.
to get to the Florida game and then pass back by, but we would see you all, yeah.
The UGA, that's true. Yeah, that's
So,
son.
yeah, just a country girl at heart. So I just my mom, she would always say, "Okay, we're going to church." But on Sunday, because my dad was a truck driver, so he would, be over the road Monday through Friday. On Saturday, I would spend the day with my mom. We would go shopping, do fun things. And then on Sunday, I wanted to be a fun run daddy because I was like, he always took me to Walmart, to Chick-fil-A, and then we would always go to arcades and then we'd come back. So, like, those are highlights of my day. And then in summertime, I had people used to come to my house to play. Like, so I had, like, go-karts, four-wheelers, it was like an arcade, water guns, laser tags, like, he was the coolest guy ever to, like, give me this huge childhood with all these stories. So long story short, everyone wanted to ride, like, my go-kart, my four-wheeler. So I would not want to go to church. I told and my mom used to be like, "No, you're going to church." And I'm like, "They're gonna ride out all my gas." That's I wanna ride all day. Like, I don't want anybody and my dad would tell me, "No, go to church. We can get more gas for you to ride out." And I was just like, "Okay, but I wanna ride out this too." But later as I grew, my mom, she really laid that foundation of saying, "No, we're going to church." And then my grandmother, she always went to church, of course. She went, so it was just that, and then I grew up in church and, of course, we find life and life finds us and we do our own thing, but that is definitely my foundation, like, and my mom, she used to always tell me growing up as a kid, she was like, "Rise and shine," or, and I never thought about it until this day, like, oh, she was speaking life into me, like, "Get up, like, rise and shine. It's time to rise. It's time to shine." And it's crazy because it all is full circle back to that foundation of her just saying, "And we're going to church." And then when I would come back from church, you would see everybody on my like stuff and they would just speed back to my house and then they would scatter because I was so I know, this is spoiled brat. This is spoiled brat. Yeah, so that's what I would do, like so I would have to credit, like, my mom, yeah, and then I didn't understand then, but as I got older and, the passing of my dad, that's when I really had to lean on God, like, yeah, it's like
My mom used to wake me up the same way, like, actually, she would be like this, "Rise and shine and give God glory, glory." I'll be like, "I don't yeah."
and I would go back to sleep, I would fall asleep in this bathtub, like, and my mom was like, "No, rise and shine, it's time to go," you know?
Mm.
So I just appreciate that. So that's kinda how it started, and then watching my grandmother, and then, watching my mom and seeing their faith, it's just like, I'm like, "One day I wanna be there, but I gotta do this."
Yeah, I'll do bad, God.
I thought I know, and then now I'm kinda like, "Okay, I'm back, God, like, let's go."
Like it never left.
Yeah.
So when you think about, I love your childhood, and now it's like I think there is a little bit of that wholesome in there because of my cousin is from Andalusia, Alabama, and she gives me that sweet country girl vibe. And really up until that point, you were a daddy's girl. Mom is still the foundation. So when you think about like your dad, like, and June is Father's Day. So like, what impact do you feel like he had on your career at that time? Like, what did you think you were gonna do? Did you think you were gonna go into the city and live alone? And
No, 'cause my mom, she tell me this all the time. She was like, "When you said you wanted to go to Georgia State," she was like, "Oh," she used to tell my dad, "I don't want my baby to go." And my dad was like, "No, she'll be fine. And she's gonna be fine." And he was one of those calm people. He could see something happen, and he's the calmest person there. Like, I could talk about him all day. But one thing that I did, see from him, he drove trucks, like 18-wheelers, and he loved it. Every day he went to work, but it wasn't work for him. It was more so it's something he loved. So he knew big trucks. He could take them all apart. He could put them back together. That's why on the day of his accident, I wholeheartedly knew he knew what was wrong with his truck, and he was just trying to make sure everyone else was okay to get past him and, that type of thing. But he didn't go to work every day. He showed me, "No, you go after a hobby." So that's why I chose 2 degrees when I went to Georgia State because I wanted one to be, okay, a job, but the other one I can use as a hobby. And then he always helped people. So growing up, I have pictures of me holding like a football because he was always like on the football field.
you knew how to spell?
I feel like I do, but then when the Super Bowl came and I tried to throw it and it was horrible, I was like, "Oh, why do I have done that?" Right. It's let me and I yeah, yeah. I was like, "I thought I was good at this, but no." I got you. But he was always, like, dedicating time to other people and helping people. And then just that overall, he was always a free person. He was creative, like, not only could he drive trucks, but he could draw. He loved photography, like, things like that I looked at, and he never was things can happen, but it's like, "Oh, it's okay." Like, tomorrow is coming, like,
Yeah.
I can't this happened, it maybe pushed me back 2 steps, but it's okay. So I kinda learned those things, and then he was just the most humble person I can, think, like,
That's where
and
I get
then
that energy from.
yeah, and then hardworking, like, he knew how to fix stuff, he would change the oil like, we never paid for oil changes. My dad didn't, like
Because he knew how to do it.
yeah, change the tires.
So it sounds like he really so he knew. I think if even if your father was still here, you probably would have still been a free birdie. 'Cause he would've encouraged that part of you to go to Georgia State and learn what it is that you need to learn. So you still went to Georgia State, got your marketing degree, and then you ventured into project management. Now, from a career perspective, and we can get into, like, the nuts and bolts of it.
Yeah.
That's what you do for work. But then from a hobbies perspective, since your dad was so much like, "You know what? You always gotta do a hobby." Like, what do you do now outside of
So, I was into event planning. So, the hospitality degree, you could have specialized in event planning. So, I actually, took classes. And now I'm seeing myself liking cooking, and I'm like, but I always said I would never, because at Georgia State, you had to take like this culinary class, where you had to actually go and get the chef hat, the whole thing. And it was like you were in a culinary kitchen, like on chop, and you had to dice and julienne and all of that stuff. So now I'm in my kitchen like,
using them skills? How you cut the knife? You like this. That's
so I see myself like tasting more and doing different things now, but event planning was like one of the things I did naturally. Like I could just come up with ideas. Like I would plan family reunions for my mom's side of the family. So things like that. That's where I eventually kind of was like, that's what I'm gonna use this for. Be a certified event planner, do that. But then I kind of shifted
okay.
because I was like, I don't know if I really want to do that. It's still a part of me, but it's just a free range. And, like I said, I like training people, teaching people things. Like at AT&T, I would train new hires, stuff like that. So, yeah, just I kind of use that as a free range to be creative and do different things. Yeah.
Nice. Okay, we're gonna get a little bit into that event planning because I feel like there's a little bit more there to explore. So we just got into AT&T. They're trusting us and teaching us all the things that we need to learn to be a project manager and deliver for clients. And then you parlayed that experience to get into a did you say a Genesis?
Agility.
Agilysys.
Yeah.
So what would you say is like the one thing that you took from your AT&T experience that led you to Agilysys?
So learned at AT&T to make internal relationships. So you may not see everyone who's a part of that project process, like, or the implementation of that project. But behind all of those steps are engineers, are technicians, are people who are brilliant, like coders and all those things. So what happened was I just had a big project at AT&T with a client, a high profile client, and I had to go and break the process to speed things up. So they wanted something in 15 to 30 days that normally took 90 to 120 days. So I had to break that process. And in that midst of doing that, I made internal relationships with engineers, coders, technicians, like all of those things. So I took that, and I truly believe that was one of the reasons why I was hired at Agilysys, because I told them how I made those relationships. So instead of just hitting someone, instant chat saying, "Hey, can you do this?" Like, no, you just say, "Hey, how you doing?" Or make small talk, but not too much to where they can't get their job done or they get too distracted, and just build that relationship with them. And in the midst of that, you can go to them for whatever, and if they're like a manager of a team, they're gonna push you through before someone else as a favor because you were just kind. And that's one of the things my dad taught me too. He was a talker. So my mom would send him to the grocery store for like breakfast meat, and it would be 15, 20 minutes later, and she's like, "He's talking to somebody I know." And he would come back and had a whole conversation, and it's like, breakfast is like, what way in the eat? So, and she said that I got that from him where I could just talk to people and then naturally, find relationships or just help them on their day or help them on their way. So that's kind of something that I used. I was like, just get to know these people. They're not just doing something for you, like, just see who they are. So building those internal relationships.
Yeah. Now, when you say break the process, for me, that I have terrible stories where I like went off the cuff and was trying to solve problems, and it just did not go well because I don't know what it was, whether it was the relationships that I was building or the processes I was breaking. But what empowered you to quote unquote break the process?
Because I
Like,
knew
what
it
was the process?
So the process was in AT&T, we had milestones. So it would be step 1 would be a site survey, where they would go out, survey, the area, say if they need fiber, they need this or, then it would be, okay, somebody goes and designs this whole thing. And then it would be, okay, we get a technician out there. And then so it was certain things that had to meet and they had certain dates. And this was all kind of like their automated population of dates. I never knew how they got those dates, but they were there. So if they were missed, then that means that I need to go figure out why they were missed. It can be something so small as the ground is cold or, you know, the hurricane just hit, so we can't go in there or tornadoes. It can be something small. But I had to then because it's gonna take that timeline that they gave is gonna take the standard 90 to 120 days. It's not gonna change. It's not gonna if it goes past 120 days, then that means I missed something, but it's not gonna be less than 90.
Okay.
So when I said I had to break the process, that meant that I had to go behind the scenes to the people who did the site survey and say, "Hey, I know this date is there, but I need you to go out there now."
Yeah.
So that type of thing, and that's
For you.
I was 23 when I got hired at AT&T.
I
Yeah,
only imagine you 23 years old,
23.
going to an engineer who's probably 35, 40,
Yeah,
right? And
veterans.
right. So did you ever come across like being the young person who's the project manager leading these people who are much older than you?
Mhm.
What was that like?
It wasn't it wasn't bad, but of course there was a challenge, but when I go back to those internal relationships, if you're nice and say, "Yes, ma'am, yes, sir," then they're gonna be like, "Oh, she's respectful." Like,
That's that Southern wisdom.
yeah. And I was like, "Yeah, Mr. John." So, yeah, I would just do that and then, kinda get my way.
As you have it, sis, you get off my bonito.
Yeah, just get my way in a nice way. I feel like I'm telling my secrets now, but, so, yeah, so
Well, you're basically,
using what the gift.
as exactly. And there's some people who, if they have that talent of like building relationships, they might not even be tapping into it the way you can.
Yeah.
So it's really just helpful for people to see like if you already like enjoy talking to people and you want to be and you're interested in project management, relationship building is one of those things
Yeah,
just
that you have to.
to get ahead.
Mhm. Yeah. So, that's how I was able to successfully, with the manners and the yes sir, the no rams and the yeah. How can I help you today?
Right. Look at what I want. I love it. So that's what empowers you to break the process because you knew the process so well that you knew the intricate pieces and you can move those along, check the boxes, and get what the client needed.
Yeah, and even the managers, like, that were managing us at AT&T, yeah, "Yes, ma'am. Yes, yes, sir." Send a Christmas card or nice note, and
Oh,
yeah, like birthday, be like, "Happy birthday."
I love it. Nobody does that anymore.
Yeah, nobody until I went to the Julius and I did that my first year there, and my manager was like, "Oh, wow, you" and I was like, "Yeah." That was another thing I grew up birthdays, holidays. Those things were important. You don't miss them. You do it before or yeah.
Yeah. I'm curious, since you have such a foundation in like being raised with your mom and dad as long as you had your dad, and then also being raised in the church, having this grounding of like the Southern living, did you ever come up against like not feeling like yourself or not feeling accepted in the corporate world or just having to find your space?
Um, I don't think so, but I think I think you what you have to do is set your standard and set your tone because you know how when you're gonna get once you get into the work environment, you're gonna get those people will try anything just to see if you'll take the bait of being the gossiper or the person who goes back and tell everything. I just came in and I was like, "Oh, I'm not that's not my business." You know, I'm not going to, say anything about this person or that person, but I'm going to talk to everyone and have a conversation. Sometimes, Aver probably can tell you this. I felt like I was the social butterfly at AT&T because everybody would come to my queue, we would hang out, and then I was like, "Okay, y'all, we gonna get in trouble." They even moved. It's so funny because I felt like I was so much of a social butterfly that they was kinda like, "Let me push her over,
Get her
but I got my work done."
It wasn't you, it was other people who just kinda hear this forever. I think too.
And I was just kinda like, I just felt like if you're just nice, you just get better things, and then, like I said, me personally, I just was like, I'm not being that person who does the whole I don't know if it's office politics, but all of those things, like, I just was like, "No, I just wanna be kind, I wanna get my job done, and I wanna be able to leave this place and, yeah, go and do my own life." But, yeah, and then sometimes it was backlash for not being that person that will tell or that person that will but at the end of the day, I wasn't going to do that. So, I do my
Was it
job.
backlash by your peers or, like, leadership who were like, "You need."
Maybe, like, leadership, maybe, or yeah, maybe, but not really in a bad way, but they just knew, like, "Okay, she's not gonna go for" because you knew who was the person, who was gonna tell if they seen you get off the elevator late or
Oh, it was yeah, that.
yeah, but see me, I can see you all day, all day getting off the elevator. That's not my business.
And I'm like, yeah. Okay, so I understand like leadership wanting you to be the person who tells what's going on, be just for staying in your own lane.
Yeah, or just being a part of those whole office politics. Yeah, no, I just wanted to stay positive and get through the day. Yeah, show love and yeah. But I can't say, like I said, every job that I've had has great. You know, yeah, it was a
Every
great time.
yeah, so you like your second role, and you parlayed that into going into a co-star, which is gonna be a completely new experience.
Completely new.
What's one of the things that you're most excited about?
So, with the Agilities, we did domestic travel. So one of the options, well, when I read the job description, it was like domestic and internationally. So I was like, yes. I was like, so I'm going to explore the world. And then with the Agilities, it was in the hospitality industry. So that tied me back to my degree where I could, work with food service management, work with hotels, work with, casinos, like wherever. Um, and travel to these places and get the full experience of, hospitality and, the things like that. So I was awarded that opportunity to travel and go to the different places for free. Like, you can't so that's another thing. I'm like, wow, traveling internationally on someone else's, that's
They're pretty cool. So
that's
will you be would it be like you know how on the job description it's like 25% travel, 50% travel? How much will you be
I
on
think
the
it said 25 to 50. I can't really remember, but yeah. But Agilysys also said that it was like, but of course, like, I think I traveled twice with them. But I know for sure one time I traveled with them to one of my projects, and it was an awesome experience.
was it?
And it was pre-COVID, like, COVID happened. I traveled in December of 2019, and COVID happened, like, 2020, like, March 2020. So, I was just getting my feet wet with, like, corporate traveling. Yeah. Yeah. So
Love it.
and it was pretty cool, like, the whole experience from the hotel, just sightseeing because I went to Paramount Studios. So, I was able to work with their leadership. I did a demo day, like
What's a
yeah.
demo day?
So with the Agilysys, we put in, POS systems.
Okay.
So that's the point of sale system. So when you go up to like a kiosk and you're in like this cafe and you're scanning your items and you check out on your own, that's something that I would have put in. Or let's say how we went to college and you know how we had like the meal dollars or like
Yeah.
yeah, the campus that came a part of your tuition. So that was now I'm the girl behind making sure that works. Yes, I had like this big client, NYU campus. Like that was my That was when I got to Agilities, that was my number 1, project, and it actually came in number 2 best technology transition or transformation, for the year. So I was like, "Oh, number 2, okay, he did it." So, yeah, like, dining dollars or when you go into a hotel and you do check-in and all that. Yeah, that's me behind.
That's cool.
Yeah.
You know, with being in 2021, everything is so automated, everything is so IT based, everything is so tapped in. You can't necessarily, not you, but like it's
You don't
hard for me
think
to
about
the
who's
transition.
behind. Yeah.
Well, not only the who's behind it, but the fact that we still have more IT transitions to go.
Yeah, because even the apps, like,
Yeah.
so if you worked at some of the places, and you were ordering through the app,
Mhm.
yeah, it's like a whole design that you have to create where you have to select, cheese and you have to, but all of this is like back end. So like I was a part of making that, you know, to go order or well not making it, but behind the scenes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
putting the pieces together, the
So you can have the app to yeah, so it's pretty cool, like and I didn't process that until after I got the job at Agilities, and I was like, "Oh, so I'm not just" I was just a regular consumer. I go into a hotel, check in, check out, or I go online, book this property, or, I never thought about, "Well, how was this made?" or "How is this made so I can easily do this in a fast, efficient way, and it's convenient."
yeah.
Yeah.
So your relationship building skills definitely is what got you through. Like I can even say, like just being when you're a good person, you
Yeah.
can make things happen, and you stay solid. From an internal perspective, with your foundation still staying like still tied to your foundation. Um, what would you say is like the technical skill that allows you to see these big projects and know how to make it come to fruition? Like know what it takes to get all these pieces together and make an app come to life.
Oh. I don't I'm going back to those relationships because I'm telling you, being a project manager, I can't speak for everyone, but learning the technical piece of everything is the hardest part because you just want to get these steps done, but you also have to know enough. So you have to either train yourself or you have to go through all these trainings to learn like technical terms, to learn what things mean. But you also I found that it was easier to get a senior technician, installer, or get a senior engineer and say, "Can you break this down for me?" And that's what happened too. I went on the road with the Agilities, and I actually was paired with a senior installer and senior, engineers, and they taught me how. They allowed me to put together a kiosk. Like, they allowed me to, do everything, go behind the scenes and do their job.
Okay.
And that was the piece for me that connected me back to, that's why this didn't make sense because I didn't touch it or I didn't yeah, so that was the cool part. I feel like maybe as project managers, we should ask to go in the field more to get a better understanding or knowledge because it kinda makes you realize like, "Oh, now I see why they say, 'No, we can't do this in 10 days.'"
Right.
Yeah, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it kinda that's kinda how the technical challenge for me was hard to grasp just by going through reading PowerPoints or going through training, and then I more so grasped it when I got hands-on.
Yeah, yeah, so that makes a lot of sense. It's even it even puts me in your mindset when you have a client who wants it done in like 15, 20 days and you're empowered to ask someone, "Hey, can you speed this up?" But not only that, if you had already had that hands-on knowledge, you would have probably committed to the client, "Well, actually,
Yeah,
this can't," as you actually know more than you did at that point. But at
yeah,
this point, you're like, "This is what I need," and you actually had someone who was able to deliver, and then you got the hands-on experience.
yeah. So now it's just yeah, because if I woulda had the hands-on experience at AT&T, I probably would have fixed a whole lot of mistakes sooner.
Listen, guys, there's only one thing that's stopping you from making consistent revenue on your podcast. And that's one, because you haven't decided that your podcast is a business. But two, you don't have an automated process that's going to get you consistent revenue on your podcast on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis. So if you know you want to get revenue on your podcast, but you just haven't started making money yet, click the link below, learn about the podcast machine. It's a system that I created for my own podcast, and now I'm helping other clients do the exact same thing. So get into the podcast machine, get your podcast automated, and start making money on your podcast today. Now let's get back into the episode.
Or even when I got on those calls and, like, "Oh, yeah, we could do this in 30 days." But if I woulda had hands-on, I would've said, "This is why it takes 30 days," or
Right.
yeah, so
Got it.
at my second position with Agilities, after going to, to a customer site and being there for almost 3 weeks, yeah, it processed it much easier for me. So I was able to tell them, "Yeah, so I didn't have a kiosk in front of me, but I remember step by step what I did." So I was able to explain that a little more.
Yeah.
And, of course, I would say, "Hey, could you join my call just to make sure I explain this right?" But yeah, I had got to the point where I can pull, I can I'm trying to think of what the word is, but I could take a file that's in like a TXT and then transfer it over, to like a Excel file. Like,
Gary, so a text file over to Excel file. All right, so you know the technical stuff.
yeah, like I was starting to learn all those things because I just sat down with like I was like, "Hey, when you do this again, like can we get on Teams meeting?" And then you show me step by step, and yeah,
Mm.
like stuff like that can kind of get you a little further of understanding what's going on or what you're implementing. Yeah.
The one thing that kind of rubs me the wrong way with project management is running after people. Do you have to do that a lot to like make sure timelines get met?
Yeah. And then the thing is you don't have access to all of the tools. So sometimes it's kind of like if I could do
You can
sometimes
do
when
it
you get
yourself.
yeah, I would just go in there and do it myself if I could. But then that'll put you like if you had I remember being at AT&T and T and I was like, "Well, can I get access to this system?" And one of the managers was like, "Be careful what you ask for, because now if you get access to that, then now it's a more responsibility to you,
Sure.
or let's just say you don't necessarily know what all this tool can do, so you can go in and make an error, and then that's kinda like." But sometimes when chasing people, it's kinda like, "Well, if I had the access, I could do it." Yeah, so that's kinda the hard part, but I will say the difference between AT&T and Agilysys was that Agility you can find people a lot easier,
Mhm.
or it I guess because it was a large corporation, but it was still kinda, like, small in a sense where, yeah, if something wasn't done right, you can go back to that same person. They may be working on 50 other things, but you know exactly what it is, so you don't have to hunt them down necessarily, but you still have to be like, "Hey, can you I need this in 10 minutes," and then 10 minutes come, and it's just like, "I need this in 2, like, I needed this 10 minutes ago,
Yeah.
30 seconds," like
That right there would give me heart palpitations because I
Yeah,
feel that might be the difference. I swear, if we did a strengths analysis, I wonder like where our relationship building skills would be,
yeah,
and then like our communication. Because as much as I love people, I do not like responsibility. I don't want to chase anybody down. So I would imagine you probably got responsibility somewhere higher, and then you probably also have some relationship building strengths that just make project management a good fit for you.
right, yeah.
Are you that so how does, like, project management, like, show up in your personal life?
I've started to notice that now that I'm sick, and I've never been this type of planner, like, in my personal life, I kinda just be like, "Okay, I'm gonna wake up this morning and I'm going to," but now that I don't yeah, it's showing up a whole lot more because I was panicking this morning when I told you I had, like, this whole wardrobing, and I was like, "Oh, I should've planned this better, and I should,"
Yeah.
and I just never and I didn't have the time to properly so now as I'm getting older, I'm like, "Okay, I wanna plan this a little more," and my mom, she's more so of a structured person where she's like, "No, I gotta be prepared," like, she's one of those people that she's gonna study for the test 3 weeks in advance. Whereas me, I'm a procrastinator. Well,
Overnight.
yeah. And so now I'm seeing myself more so kinda lean from procrastination into kinda trying to plan stuff out and trying especially financially. Yeah, like, if I meet someone along the way and I'm like, "Hey, you need to do this, you need to do this, and then think about it in this way." Like, that type of thing, yeah.
Do you plan all the vacations? Your, like, girls' trips?
I try, but hey I try, but then I'm just kinda I lose the weight, so it's still kinda that transition for me, but I do kinda sorta start, in the back of my mind. I don't write it down on paper or make a timeline, but in the back of my mind, I'm thinking like, "Okay, well, I know this weekend or I know I gotta get this," so yeah, trying to plan out, "Well, I'm gonna go to this place first and then go to that place, and then this makes more sense," but
Yeah, but you don't necessarily sound like it doesn't sound like you're the homegirl who's like, "Alright, Ashley, you do this normally, so I need you to do this." You don't coordinate it. You don't like it, nah. The responsibility stays at the job.
Yeah, yeah, but I can see certain things that
Mm.
I go and I try to plan, like, in the back of my mind, but not really wholeheartedly. Because you gotta realize project management is an agile environment that I work in too. So, at Agilysys, you can't have a plan with, this customer is not gonna be like this client. So, it's kinda still a sense of, yeah, it's gonna be phases of a project, but there's gonna be a lot of different things happening within that phase.
So it doesn't feel like one thing after that, like, this is, like, literally
Changing every day, yeah, so, yeah, it's different in an agile environment, whereas not Agilysys, but AT&T was a waterfall. Yeah, so it's yeah, like, I feel like agile project management can go
anyway. That
anyway,
sounds
and it's
fun over
fun.
there.
It's fun in a way when you sit back and think about it, and then but sometimes you can be there for long hours just 'cause one number could just be in the wrong place or so then you gotta go and dissect and see what happened, and then you gotta once you get done, so, yes.
Got you. So growing up, and tell me again,
What?
the city in Georgia,
Wrightsville.
Wrightsville, because I was gonna say
Yeah.
River, right?
Everybody says
They say River. I don't know why that's the first.
or they'll say, Whitesville, and I'm like, "No, it's Wrightsville."
Thank you for that clarification. I see. For a black woman growing up in Wrightsville, and had your idea of, well, your perspective of the world as an only child, what was your idea of success? Like, did you imagine, and we talked a little bit about life now, but did you imagine this?
I don't know. So and it's kinda weird because in school, high school, I guess I can go there. I was voted homecoming court like 3 out of 4 years. She was popular. I don't know, I don't know if I was like, sometimes I think back and I'm like, "Was I popular? Was I not popular?" But I think it's just because I was just nice. Like, some people didn't talk to the kid that may have had something that was different. But me, yeah, or, I just was liked by both groups of people, both people of color, and then, like white people, or, so
Yeah.
it's just being all around. So I kind of sometimes battle with that because I did play sports. I didn't, I wasn't a cheerleader. Like I had my own group of friends. Like I think I had two best friends in high school. Yeah, two. And then like a group of guys that I would hang around with. But and a lot of people were like, "Oh, you dress different," or "Oh, you," and I was like, "Oh, okay, my mom styled me," like yeah, so it was just kinda like, I don't know, I just feel like maybe because I was just nice to everybody and I just was maybe a humble person, and I just I really didn't think about it until after the fact when people were like, "Oh, you had this or you" and I was like, "Oh, I didn't even realize, like, that was considered" like, in school, I wanted a Ford Mustang, like, at 16, I was like, "This is" I had this whole thing, like, "Well, I want this, the black" like, all of that type of written out, but I was driving an Acura in high school, and a lot of people was like, "Do you not understand?" I said me, I was just like, "Oh, it's just a car that I hate." I want a Ford Mustang like all the people normally get. But a lot of people were like, "Oh my god, like, that's crazy." And then so now I just see I think I saw and then I had an older cousin. He passed away in 2020, but he was 4 or 5 years older than me. So I looked at him as an example. So by the time I got in high school, he was going for his freshman year in college. So my mom exposed me to him. So he went to Savannah State. So when he moved in, I was right there looking. So it was like a glamorous thing to me. And I followed in his every footstep in a sense because when he left Savannah State, he went to Atlanta, and he was just that example for me, and I just was kinda like, "I want more." Of course, you get caught up in some of the small things that you see every day, but there's just something and then, like I said, my mom, prayer and just like, you know, she didn't say, "Oh, you gotta go be a doctor, you gotta be," but she probably said I know she did, said prayers like, "Let her be able to flourish," and, so I had that example for my cousin, and then, like I said, people always like, "You dress different," or you do things differently, and I was like, "Oh, okay."
You
And
always had that success written all over your face.
maybe, yeah.
That's what it's
I don't like to be the person to be like, "Oh, I was this or I was this." Like, no.
I mean, when I heard four-wheeler and, ATV and yeah, and I heard go-karts, I said, "Oh, I'm imagining a nice plot of land, literally, like, just Southern sweetness, but Southern belle is what came to me. Yeah, so success, you had your own level of success as a kid, and so it sounds like you were used to finer things, you were exposed to
Yeah, don't hype me up. That's what living I just feel, yeah. But I did, and that came from my dad being an inner child. And then my parents, they just was like, I want my child to have more. And then that even goes back to financially how I'm set up now. It was because of my parents' choices. And when I was small, like when they got married, my parents had hand-me-downs. Like they went and they bought a place, but instead of like fully furnishing their place, they got a TV from someone who wasn't using that, and they got furniture for someone. And those small steps and sacrifices that they made has me 31 debt free.
Yeah, that's powerful.
And I never thought about this until now I'm on Instagram and people are like, create generational wealth and, those things. So I just set up and then it wasn't until my relationship when I, opened up to someone that I trusted and they were like, "Man, Alexis," I was like, "Yo, I never thought about it in that way." So I had time to reflect and I'm just like, they set the foundation.
It's so rare. So and that also I think your spirituality is what keeps you grounded, and the relationship building is what keeps you grounded. But I think also you have always had a semblance of like comfortability in the way you live. So when you get to corporate, this is nothing new outside of the fact that you living in a city. Life is good. I'm used to good things. I have my head on my shoulders. You know what success looks like, and you also have a humble upbringing where you respect and not just respect, you appreciate, and then I feel gratitude coming from you from like what they did for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Now I'm just kind of like, I, I don't know. I can't explain it, but yeah, like, I'm overwhelmed, like, even now that I'm thinking about it, I'm trying to process it, I'm like, "Yo, that's super dope," like, they were m my mom was when my mom turns 50, she's born in '71, so you're talking about a couple that's, like, in their early 20s, In my early 20s, I was party not partying, but, we encountered each other, so we're like yeah, like, I wasn't thinking about being a wife, a husband, and then having a child, because they had me 1 year after being married. So, it was kinda like, "Oh, wow," like, I couldn't imagine being 23 or 24, even 25 through 28,
Yeah.
doing that.
Yeah.
No. I was traveling with that's when we had our road to Miami, yeah. But we would sail on the road
Traveling as free.
Without I didn't have my driver's license, remember?
Is that like, did somebody drive your car or what happened?
We had rental cars. And remember, I got to when we was gonna go to Sugar Factory or something, and I was like, "Where's my ID?" And then everybody was like, "You don't got your ID." You remember?
Kind of.
So irresponsible, right? Drove all the way. While we were driving, I don't even know. I think this was a fair moment.
But we were so far away from like the Miami like streets, so we were like somewhere ducked off in the house.
Yes,
It was nice because we were cool. So we needed like space.
we needed a lot of because there's a lot of us.
Yeah, but that's neither here nor there. So bad.
Yeah, so yeah, back then. Yeah. But we were going back to saying like that I was irresponsible at that age, like, driving somewhere but my parents were so responsible that they were already creating things. And my dad, he was an entrepreneur, at times and then he would, so those things that I just kind of yeah.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, like when I sit back and reflect on it like, "Oh, that's super dope."
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine doing that. But back to that, like the financial stability and like those things helped me get to where I am now. So it's smart. It's not all good. Like I'm not trying to paint it as all good, but it's a journey.
I guess since you bring it up, what would you say through? Because what would you say what would you say? Well, wait a minute. I know everything is not all good, but let's be real. When you grow up and you witness, your father passing away sooner than you experienced, that's a challenge. So I don't want to overlook and say like, oh, this girl has never experienced.
That was my first. I never experienced anything outside of. So at 23, when that happened, it was like, whoa. Like, I felt like my parents not sheltered me, but kind of protected me from the world in a sense to where I really didn't know. Like, yeah, I went off to college at 17 when we graduated high school. And then I did that, but at the end of the day, I was still cared for by my parents. So now you're like the head of the household, like he's gone. Like, so now it's a transition. So it's like now it's just you and your mom. So that in itself was like, that was the first bad thing that I could really be like, oh, this happened to me. What? I didn't think nothing bad happened, really. You see people pass away, but it's not like in your house that you see. But I can say, God, like going back to that religion, I graduated college in 2012. So I didn't have a job. And I had started this sales job, but it was like I didn't like it. So I ended up leaving. So I had 6 months back home in my parents' house. And it was back like I was at high school. And I know a lot of people frown upon like, no, don't move back into your parents' house. Don't. But that was the best thing for me. And I remember my mom saying, no, just come back home. I just want you to come back home. Don't get an apartment, just come back home because if you get an apartment, it's gonna be a financial struggle. And me, I'm like, "No, I want Atlanta, I want Atlanta." But she had known because she was like, "I'm trying to create." She didn't say this then, but now we have conversations and she was like, "Yeah, financially, was creating a thing for you to not go out there and get in debt and get things that you couldn't." Because I didn't have a salary fresh out. I didn't have anything. I was on a commission doing sales. So God, going back to that, he allowed before my father passed away, he allowed me to go back home to what was normal and spend time with him. Yeah. And then June 2013, I got my job at AT&T. So my father was able to see she did it.
She was gonna be all right.
Yeah. So then August of that year, I got my first apartment in the city. So what I did was from June, July, August, I just saved everything. So it's smart. And then I have to credit the family members. I had an aunt and uncle who was here and they were like, yeah, we have this house. Our kids are out. So come.
Yeah.
Me most nice. Yeah. So I have to give credit to them too. But they helped me. So I just stacked all of my money and then got that place and immediately, a lot of people get furniture debt. Like, no, I paid cash. And I was like, yes, God, like, didn't have those things. So if I could say something to someone like, just be patient, like, don't be so ready to do it because everybody else is doing it. It's really in your perfect timing. So maybe that's one of the things in life, like, I've always been like, "I wanna do this, I wanna" even in college when everyone was moving out, getting their own apartments,
You're like,
my butt was on campus.
yeah,
My mama was like, "No, ma'am. We're not doing no, ma'am. You're on campus for your 4 years of college,
yeah,
so you don't have those financial burdens and you're studying, you're doing those things, and those are the small things that they made sacrifices to make sure I could do that,
right.
and it just goes back to, I forgot, but yeah.
It goes well, so we were just talking about, like, what success looked like for you, and then we were saying, like, there were you were saying, like, My life hasn't been all good," like, "No, no, you."
But yeah, it's yeah, like, I've had challenges,
Mhm.
like, the passing of my father was the first real thing, yeah,
And I
and
guess before we go out, I definitely wanna know, like, when you think about that journey and, like, you and your mom becoming, like, independent women, so to speak, without the male nucleus of your family, what's one of those things that you bring into your success now or that you've realized about yourself that you probably didn't know when you had your dad?
yeah, I just thought everything was you know how they used to think money on growing trees, like, so you're thinking, like, everything is just good and everything is just and after that happened, I'm just like, "Okay," I'm 23 and, you encounter things along the way and you're like, "Oh, daddy can't protect me." But I will say that just allowed me to gravitate more towards faith and, like, getting a relationship with God and then praying for things and, things coming, like and when you get them, you're kinda like, "Whoa," like, "I prayed about this, but I didn't know it was gonna be this magnitude," or, and then just stepping up to 'cause I never this may sound bad, but I never my parents did not place responsibility. This sounds so bad. Sorry. So, but I am an only child, and, anybody who have only children, they should not do chores. Should not get
Look, she's a spokesperson for only children.
no, I'm just kidding, but that's one thing, like, they just allowed me to be a kid and allowed me to everything was literally perfect timing, like, some of their no's were, like, my ultimate yeses, it being 29, 30, 31. Being able to sit and say, "Oh, I'm debt free."
Mhm.
But it was because of their no's that I wanted to be yeses at that time and, like, stuff like that. So it's, like, perfect timing. Um, yeah, perfect timing.
Mm,
Everything was perfect timing because if I go back and think before I got my job at AT&T, I could have chosen any job just to live in Atlanta,
yeah.
just not to go back home with that whole stigma like, "Oh, you gotta go back home, live in your parents' house." That was the best decision ever.
Right, because then you could get a much better paying job that sends you on
Yeah.
a whole new trajectory.
Yeah, and it level set me to, "No, you said you wanted better, so this is how you're gonna get better by taking it day to day and then your perfect time and your perfect journey." So that's kinda how I was able to get into it's just my perfect time. I never thought I would work in corporate America. That wasn't like, coming from the country, like, you're not thinking, like, it's not saying that we don't think on that level, but you're not really exposed to the big high rises or the city life and the things like that. Like you see it, and then when you travel outside of that environment, you see those things. So yeah, it's just, you gotta see someone who's doing it. And then you have to have that determination, that willpower to say, I want to do it too.
Yeah.
And then once you get exposed to it, and some people are like, I want to work in corporate America. That wasn't even my thought. Like, I didn't think that was big until I got there. And people were like, oh, wow, you work for, and I'm like, yeah, but it's a job,
Right, yeah.
And I guess, it's just things like that, I don't know.
That keeps blessing you. That just keeps
Yeah.
blessing you. That's why your blessings keep coming.
Yeah. And it's just, yeah, just stay on your own course. Like,
Mm.
everything, let it be perfect timing and everything will work out. And it's never, if something happens, like the passing of my father that happened, and that was traumatic. The worst day of my life. but it also had to happen in order for me to see things differently, to kind of become an adult, or kind of, I guess I'm saying it right, if that makes sense. But
Yeah, because like you said, what it did was it took away that lens of like, okay, daddy's gonna take care of everything, and it made you stand up into your womanhood, which
yeah,
it could have happened other ways, but the way that it happened is
yeah,
with the blessing of your dad kind of looking down on you, watching you being a woman.
yeah, I like how you put that. Yeah, that's nice. But yeah,
I mean, that's how I see it. And I think everything happens for a reason. So if you say everything was perfect timing, then we have
yeah,
to also accept that even the worst things that
yeah,
happen to us
it's
are
all
perfect timing. So
yeah.
thank you so
I
much
know.
for like
Thank
it's been a
you.
really good couch time.
I know. I feel like it's a good way to, career, but then also I feel like it just tied back to just be true to your personal self, and then everything will fall in line for career opportunities because you can still, do well there, but you have to stay true to yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, to get there. But thank you for inviting me.
Thank you.
I know it was an honor. I was like, Ariel, yeah.
No, I remember your story. I think there is balance in everyone. And as we go up the corporate ranks, we forget that we have our own identities, we have our own passions, our own hobbies, which promise you, like, I'm gonna actually have a conversation about how we can parlay this hospitality experience and this new international/domestic travel. But
We're gonna talk about it.
but I
Yeah.
had a question for you. So one thing that I typically do on the podcast is I reach back, but you've given us a lot of gems for those who are like unsure about where they want to go. So what I want to ask you is, how are you looking forward, and what's your next milestone? What are you trying to shoot for?
Oh. So what I did, we work from home everyone is working from home, but it was something like they was saying, no, it's time to reset. So I'm going back into the office, but of course it'll be for some days. So in the midst of realizing I'm going back into the office, like I'm resetting myself, because now I'm getting back into fitness again, because I was into it.
You were doing what when I was doing bird raising?
Because I'm trying to remember, and
You were losing a bunch of weight.
yeah, I was into the fitness thing. Remember?
I'm getting my little window of you on Instagram and things are
Yeah. So I had
really,
I was very serious. So I kind of, in the midst of getting that second job, it was more than I expected. So I had to. My personal life took a shift back, but it's all experience though, because that allowed me, I was telling you I was getting more exposure to certain things. So with that job, so now I'm like, yes, I'm coming back. It's like I'm resetting myself. So I'm getting back into fitness and being in that environment of going back to work where you're suited and you're ready to perform and you're ready to rise and shine. So now I'm kind of like, okay, I remember back then when I was like, I think I want to be a VP. I think I want to, do great things in that area. So now I've reset myself and I'm like, yeah, go for it. Set that tone, get ready, suit up, rise and shine every day that you walk into that new job. And do it and just go. Yeah. So that's one of the things, everyone's like, why you want to go back to the office? Yeah, I need to.
Yeah. Those relationships, like you building relationships in person is going to be way more impactful.
Yeah.
Than.
Yeah. And it's kind of said to me like, this the next level. Yeah. You transition over to 30. So it's time to take it to that next level.
So she's going into leadership.
Like I'm thinking of, I'm like, no, let's go back and get it. Go back and reclaim so you can go back and give back and be an example. Like how my cousin was. He was an example. Like,
so it sounds like what we have to look forward to is before you've always had this relationship. You've always had a relationship building strength.
Yeah.
And now it's like you're going to put some strategy behind it.
Yeah, now. That's what I've been looking into now.
Okay.
Yeah.
I cannot wait to see where this goes. God,
I
I have to have her back for follow-up so they
Yeah,
can talk
so
about this VP position.
yeah, like, now strategy. I didn't think about it in that way until I just said that out loud, like, "Oh,
If that's where we wanna go,
yeah,
we know what we
got to do to get
exactly.
there."
All we need to do is put a strategy in place, and it makes it so mu just like you writing down your prayers, you
Yeah.
already putting it out there in the open, but now you're just gonna put a strategy behind it and make it intentional.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I was like, I never thought about that, but it's all about, starting from step 1, which was, my first job, great, amazing opportunity. And then step 2, it pushed me to more hands-on experience and understanding more. And then now step 3 is kind of like, okay, I got it. It's all connecting. And this is, yeah. So I'm excited.
Look at her talking like a project manager. Look,
Yeah, that's the plan.
Step 2. Well, thank you so much for joining me. And thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you for listening. And so, Alexis, if there's someone out there who's resonated with your story or they want to stay connected with you, how can they get connected with you?
So I'm on LinkedIn, Alexis Hines. And then I'm also on Facebook, same name. And on Instagram, I'm Your Highness. I know, sounds bad.
That's her answer. That's
Avery came up with that one though.
really
Yeah, because we were like in there, we were I was like, what should my Instagram name be? Because I'm not really a social media person. Like, I'm never on Facebook at all. But I'm there as a presence, but I'm not just recording every day.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah. So he came up with that name. He's like, yeah, take your last name and then add some S's. And
I have never heard him be so creative.
he did, because,
I love it.
yeah, and it really, yeah, you just take, yeah, and add some S's. I was like, you are a genius.
That's
Like, thank you.
beautiful. Yeah.
ATC.
I just thought you had some inner Beyonce in you.
Oh, really? No, that was all ever. And
I'm sure you got a little bit in there, a little bit, man, a little Sasha Fierce sprinkled in there.
Yeah.
So y'all know how to catch her. So Your Highness on Instagram, Alexis Hines on Facebook, LinkedIn. And if they want to email you, is that a thing too? Or should we DM? Should we stick to the
Yeah, let's stick there. And then, yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
I know.
Until next time, I will catch you guys later. Peace out.
All right. Bye.